The Despicable Me movies are always stuffed with stacks of pop culture references and Easter eggs that can be lots of fun for fans to uncover. Yippee-ki-yay movie lovers, it's Jan here, and I've scoured Despicable Me 3 for Easter eggs, funny references, plus other cool things you might have missed, and I'm going to be revealing all of them in this video. And I've also got a bunch of cool merchandise from the movie to give away, so make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications and answer the question I'll be asking later in the video. A quick reminder also that there are some spoilers in this video, so take care if you haven't seen the movie yet. Let's kick off with a very cool Easter egg to Illumination's next animated movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which stars Benedict Cumberbatch in the title role. You can spot the grouchy Grinch character from the movie and book of the same name by Dr. Seuss on Margo's t-shirt in Despicable Me 3. But this isn't the first time that Illumination has featured one of their upcoming films in this way. If you look back at the first Despicable Me movie, which was released in 2010, you'll see that Margo wore a t-shirt with a picture of the Lorax on it, and that character popped up in his own movie 2 years later. Agnes's unicorn obsession continues in Despicable Me 3, and there's a funny callback to the unicorn toy from the funfair in the first movie that Gru eventually won for her. In Despicable Me 3, Agnes wanders into the Tipsy Unicorn Bar in Fredonia, where she meets a bartender who apparently has a real unicorn horn. And after she grills him about the unicorn, she demands to know if it was fluffy, and he replies with the same words that Agnes said in the first movie: "It was so fluffy I thought I was going to die."
Look at that fluffy unicorn! He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die! You saw a for real life unicorn? What did it look like? Did you pet it? Did it smell like candy? Was it fluffy?
It was so fluffy! I thought I was gonna die.
VillainCon, the supervillain convention for would-be masterminds and criminals that first appeared in the Minions movie, gets a shout out in Despicable Me 3 via a poster on the wall during the shot with 2 minions. Gru's resident mad scientist, Dr. Nefario, has appeared in all the Despicable Me movies so far, including a small cameo in the Minions movie where a young Nefario showcased his freeze ray to a young Gru and his mother at VillainCon. In the third Despicable Me movie though, we discover that Dr. Nefario has accidentally frozen himself in carbonite, which is an obvious hat tip to Han Solo in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Despicable Me 3 introduces a brand new minion called Mel, who becomes the leader of the banana-loving mischief makers. Given that Mel is the new top minion in town, it seems totally fitting that he was named after Chris Meledandri, the big boss and founder of Illumination Studios. And notice how when the minions go to prison, Mel also literally gets #1 billing with 001 on his prison uniform to indicate that he's the head minion. And Mel is not only named after Illumination boss Meledandri, but Mel's hairstyle is also modelled after Meledandri's own hairline. In fact, Mel's whole design is based on a birthday card drawing that co-director Eric Guillon did years ago of Meledandri as a minion. Mel is of course responsible for the Minion rebellion against Gru, but before that he played a hilarious montage of photos that the Minions put together to try and convince Gru that being bad is so much more fun than being good. And in one of those shots we can see Gru stealing a rare artifact that looks a lot like the golden idol that Indiana Jones stole at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. After almost all the minions leave, Gru and company travel to Fredonia to meet his twin brother Drew. Although Fredonia is a fictitious place, it's actually a real word that originated just after the American Revolution, and later became popularised in the Marx Brothers comic movie Duck Soup, about a small country called Fredonia. In Despicable Me 3, Fredonia is hilariously overrun with pigs. The police ride on pigs rather than horses, one of the license plates reads "Free Pig", and the ceiling in the entrance hall to Drew's lavish mansion is, as Lucy points out, like the Sistine Chapel with pigs. Pigs are also incorporated into almost everything in Fredonia. There's a Cheese Invaders arcade game in the inn, a pig-manned foosball game, Hog Zoda and Frito Cola adverts, and does that map of Fredonia suggest the island is even shaped a bit like a pig? Back at Drew's mansion, Drew introduces Gru to his lair, which is full of statues of past villains from their family. And as they walk past a gunslinger, if you look carefully in the next shot, you can just make out the name at the base of the statue, which is Grutch Cassidy, a reference to Butch Cassidy, the real-life Wild West train and bank robber. And if we look at the rest of the villains in this Hall of Infamy, could that be a Gru version of Hannibal Lecter? Over here, this clown-looking Gru might be a nod to the infamous clown Pennywise from the Stephen King novel It and its upcoming big screen adaptation. And next to him, that looks a bit like Igor, the classic hunchbacked assistant to Frankenstein or Count Dracula. And if that is Igor, it might also be a little tie-in or reference to Universal's Dark Universe, as Universal is the parent company of Illumination who developed the Despicable Me franchise. Gru and Dru are of course opposites of sorts, and the Despicable Me 3 filmmakers have described Dru as the yin to Gru's yang. And on this theme, the animators have cleverly snuck in a variety of yin and yang symbolism into several scenes involving Gru and Dru. First of all, the logo on the side of Dru's Despicamobile is a riff on the classic yin-yang symbol. And notice how the logo shows up again on Dru's coffee mug over here. Gru and Dru's costumes are also black and white, the same colours that make up the yin-yang symbol. And later, when Gru and Dru are up on the side of Bratt's fortress, they roll up into a ball that forms the yin-yang symbol thanks to their black and white costumes. Later, after the brothers get inside Bratt's fortress, Dru makes a sly reference to one of my favourite comedy shows. Steve Carell, who voices Gru and Dru, is probably still best known for his portrayal of Michael Scott in the sitcom The Office. In Despicable Me 3, after breaking into Bratt's lair, Dru says he's feeling queasy and that he shouldn't have eaten that pot pie. This is a knowing callback to the season 5 finale of The Office, where the whole office played an elaborate ruse on Michael so they could go home early, when Michael fell asleep after eating a family-sized pot pie. Balthazar Bratt is of course the new villain for Despicable Me 3, and thanks to his obsession with his former fame as a 1980s child star and his cancelled TV show Evil Bratt, he brings a large amount of 80s references to the movie. 80s music runs throughout the whole film, and I particularly liked Bratt's homage to Michael Jackson's Moonwalking while Jackson's 1987 hit Bad was playing. Bratt also makes a clever 80s Hollywood reference when he unleashes his evil army of Brat dolls, who he calls the Brat Pack. The Brat Pack, spelled with a single T, was a term first used in the 1980s to describe a group of up-and-coming actors who often worked together, including Emilio Estevez, Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy. At one point, Bratt also says, "I love it when a plan comes together," which is a nice reference to Hannibal's famous catchphrase from the 1980s TV series The A-Team. The giant Dumont diamond that Bratt steals at the beginning of the movie is a riff on the Pink Panther diamond from the 1963 movie which starred Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers' physical comedy in his portrayal of Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther movies has also been a big influence on all the Despicable Me movies, according to the franchise's filmmakers, and you can certainly see they've drawn inspiration from the style of the Pink Panther films for this movie's closing credits. The fart gun from Despicable Me 1 and 2 makes a brief appearance during the opening Illumination title, when one of the minions barges in and uses a gun to blast the others. The Brad and Gary ice cream that appears in Despicable Me 3 seems like a funny pun on the famous ice cream brand Ben & Jerry's, but it's also an Easter egg to Illumination's short film Brad and Gary, which was directed by Despicable Me 3 director Pierre Coffin, who also voiced the character of Brad in that short film, and is of course the voice of the Minions as well. Illumination's previous movie Sing gets a fairly obvious shout out when the Minions run into a recording studio where a musical talent show called Sing is being filmed, and on the way into the show they also run past some Sing billboards outside. Inside the studio, the Minions put on a pretty spectacular performance with their own interpretation in Minionese of the modern Major General's song from the Gilbert and Sullivan comic opera The Pirates of Penzance. The Minions' dance routine during the song also made me think back to the wonderful sausage factory scene in Illumination's The Secret Life of Pets, both of which were partly inspired by the renowned musical choreography of Busby Berkeley. Later, during the scenes where Bratt's giant robot is terrorising Hollywood, you can see billboards advertising an Onions movie. Now, given that one of the ads for the film says coming soon, and the fact that its title sounds rather like a play on the word Minions, I think this is a clever tease to the Minions 2 movie coming in 2020. Another Hollywood billboard was for Fast Car Driver 12, a bit of a joke at the long-running Fast and Furious franchise, which is owned by Illumination's parent company, Universal. I also chuckled at the Giganotosaurus Rex billboard, clearly a wordplay combination of the two dinosaurs Giganotosaurus and Tyrannosaurus Rex, both of which are part of another current Universal Studios movie franchise, Jurassic World. The Billboard Easter eggs were a fun way for Illumination to reference franchises owned by their parent company Universal, but I think they may have also enjoyed poking fun at one of their major animation rivals, Pixar, during the underwater scene at the beginning of the movie when a pair of clownfish suddenly appear out of nowhere. Gru, Lucy and the Minions blast past the clownfish on their way to stop Balthazar Bratt from stealing the Dumont diamond. The moment does feel a bit on the nose and perhaps a little joke at Pixar's Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. So which Easter egg in Despicable Me 3 did you like the best, and were there any I missed? And if there's another sequel, what would you like to see happen in Despicable Me 4? For a chance to win this awesome Despicable Me 3 merchandise, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about the movie, and also answer the following question. In Despicable Me 3, what substance was Dr. Nefario accidentally frozen in? Make sure you turn on your notifications to get all my new animation and Easter egg videos where I'll be announcing the winners of the giveaway. And let me know what movie Easter eggs you'd like me to do in a future video. If you enjoyed this, I really appreciate you hitting that thumbs up button, and check out some more of my videos right here. Congratulations to the winner of my Beauty and the Beast giveaway, who's on the screen now. If that's you, send me a message on YouTube or via my email on my About page so I can get your details to send you the prize. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!